Hey guys, Alex Khan here, and I'm going to review the latest car movie that came out recently, and that's Ford v Ferrari, or Ford versus Ferrari. And before I get into that, I want to recount a pretty interesting story. Not really that interesting. I'll make it short. Basically, I like going to the drive-in theater, but the nearest drive-in theater is all the way in Lakeland, so that's about a 90-minute drive. And I only go to the drive-in theater when the weather's good, because in Central Florida, the weather humidity it can get up to 80, 90 degrees, and that's really hot and kind of uncomfortable to watch a movie in. So this weekend, we were blessed with 50-degree weather. So made it a point to go to Lakeland to go to my favorite theater in town, or out of town, and that's Lakeland Silver Moon Drive-In Theater to watch Ford versus Ferrari. So on the way to Lakeland, my rear tire actually blew out, and it blew out near Lakeland. So since we were almost already at the exit for the theater. Most people would have turned back or called AAA, but we decided just to change my blown tire out and replace it with the spare tire. Rolled on to to the Lakeland Theater to watch the movie, and then we worried about the spare tire problems after the movie. So went to watch this new car movie at my favorite theater in town to get corn dogs, popcorn, hot cocoa, all that good concession food from the movie theater. And this movie was perfect to watch this kind of, to watch at the drive-in because it's a car movie, and that's what, the drive-in's all about. It's all about having a good time watching, any kind of movie, but I personally like car movies. So this movie stars Matt Damon as Carroll Shelby, and then it also stars Christian Bale as Ken Miles. Both actually have a very good, extensive racing career, but Carroll Shelby is known more for his car development and innovative ideas, and Ken Miles was known for being a very awesome race car driver, and he passed away, or he was basically killed in a car accident not too long after the setting of this movie. So the basic premise of this movie is Henry Ford II. This is not Henry Ford, the guy who made Ford Company. This is his grandson, or sorry, his son, Henry the Ford II, and he owns Ford. And then at some point in the movie, his vice president saying, "Hey, let's make Ford even more awesome by winning at the 24 hours at Le Mans race." And people were thinking, winning at a race isn't so awesome since Ford sales were already off the charts at this time. But he convinces Ford that winning at the 24 hours at Le Mans would make Ford an even more cooler name to behold, and it might even increase their sales even more. So they hire Carroll Shelby to develop a race car that can compete and win at the 24 hours at Le Mans, and Carroll Shelby hires Ken Miles to do all the test driving for him. So it's this partnership between Carroll Shelby and Ken Miles, while being interfered with by the Ford Company, that this whole movie is about. So the first 2/3 of this movie is about Carroll Shelby and Ken Miles making this new car for the race, and that is the Ford GT40, which is basically the Ford GT. That's the first 2/3 of this movie, and the last third of this movie is the actual race at Le Mans. So I just want to start by saying that the acting was absolutely top notch, especially from Christian Bale. Christian Bale, he's had a pretty shady history in terms of what goes on behind scenes. Most notably, his big meltdown, which you can hear the audio on YouTube, but all of that aside, his acting in this movie was fantastic. I really felt sorry for Ken Miles because at some point in the movie, well, at 2 points in this movie, you feel that Ken Miles didn't get what he deserved. So if you know the history, then you pretty much know how Ken Miles got robbed of several things. But history would vindicate Ken Miles. He would later get some pretty good racing awards for his name. And then Carroll Shelby, of course, everyone knows Carroll Shelby, a very famous car innovator. And he's worked not just with Ford, but with other car companies as well, like Dodge, when they're developing the first Dodge Viper. They're trying to make that car much lighter than what it was. So this movie's called Ford versus Ferrari because the big showdown is between Ford and Ferrari. Ferrari was actually winning all these races at the 24 Hours Le Mans. And the title is kind of misleading because this movie is really, it's not just about the race between these two racing giants. It's also about, as I said, the partnership between Ken Miles and Carroll Shelby. And honestly, that aspect of this movie is my favorite part. I love seeing Christian Bale get in the prototype Ford GT, drive it around, and just like that, he's able to deliver a diagnosis on how to improve the car's speed and whatnot. So yeah, this movie was very amazing. I can't explain why. It just feels like old fashioned movie making. It's a very innocent and very simple premise. This car company in America wants to beat these European giants on their home soil. Not really their home soil, but in Europe. So they try to come up with a car in no time, and they do. And then for the next few years, Ford does dominate at Le Mans. So it's a pretty good feel good movie, I suppose. Although not quite feel good all around. So I am kind of rambling right now. I'm just kind of posting my thoughts on this movie. So when you do actually see the car moving, which there's car action throughout the entire movie, to be honest. They're very well shot. Probably not as well filmed as Rush, but I think this movie has way better pacing than Rush, because I've said this in many of my car movie reviews, is I love car movies, but I actually don't like racing car movies that much. I think the premise of just being faster isn't good enough for me in terms of storytelling. So when I get the backstory to the race, then that's when I get more excited, because I don't want to just see cars racing. I want to see an actual story that gets me attached to these cars and their drivers. And I think in that respect, Ford vs. Ferrari succeeds very well at that stage. And I'm trying to think of other car movies, like other race car movies that I do like. I like Days of Thunder. I liked Rush too. Le Mans starring Steve McQueen. That was a pretty good movie. Actually, Le Mans is pretty groundbreaking for its time, and everyone loves Steve McQueen. But I think Ford versus Ferrari is going to be maybe tied for number 2 or 1 as my top racing car movie, probably alongside Days of Thunder. Because I love Days of Thunder. I think Tom Cruise is an amazing actor, and kind of ironic to say, but Tom Cruise and I think Brad Pitt was supposed to be in this movie. But due to reasons, behind the scenes, it ended up going to Christian Bale and Matt Damon. Just want to say I really recommend this movie, especially if you're a car movie buff. You will love this movie, and there's a lot of actual historical anecdotes about this movie that are true. For example, at the 66 Le Mans race, the Ford executive, they did tell Ken Miles to slow down so that they could have a photo finish. I won't say anything more than that because I don't want to post any major spoilers. But post your thoughts on this movie. Have you seen it? And what do you think about Ford? What do you think about Ferrari? I'm more of a Mopar fan myself, but I do have a weak spot for Shelby and then also for the Ford Mustangs.